Do you, in the course, discuss the steps that lead to zina? And I guess I'm talking from the age that we live in now, the access to sin has become so much easier. Um, do you perhaps look at some of the methods that we can use to protect ourselves from falling into it?
Yeah, there's a lot of discussion in the class, because even the communities vary with regards to what they can do,
Yeah,
right? So it becomes a lot of it becomes just education in the first place. I think one of the things that we have to do is we have to be courageous and intelligent and articulate enough to actually unmask zina. Meaning, how do
yeah.
you make it? Ibn al-Qayyim, he says something powerful about it, and he says that az-zina destroys nizam al-alam. It destroys the institutions of the world. It
Wow,
destroys the systems of the world.
deep statement.
And incredibly perceptive,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
not like he's living in a society where it's prevalent or anything like that. But he recognizes that it destroys all of the institutions. Of course, the most obvious one being family, right? But it affects everything. It'll affect your education, and it'll affect your it will affect every aspect of society when it is something that is allowed and promoted. And that's one of the things that we do. So it's about, okay, how do you forget proving to a Muslim? How would you prove to a non-Muslim that this is not a good idea for them?
Yeah, yeah.
Everything from, you know, you guys in the UK, you recently appointed a minister of loneliness, right?
Right.
So how are people getting more lonely? Like, how does that work? Why is that the case? Why are people so lonely? Well, it's interesting that whenever you make things easier on people, people will always take that which is easier, right? Every time you create an update, you bring out a new phone, you bring out a new technology or anything that just makes people's lives easier. People before, they could not imagine that malls would go out of business. There's so much that I do at the mall.
Yeah.
But let's create something called Amazon and let's see if they really want to go to the mall or if they would just prefer to click something and have it show up at their house. And people don't go to malls anymore, right? Something that was such a
Staple
important,
part of the life experience. Yeah.
absolutely. America is all gas stations and malls.
Yeah.
Like and now people don't even go to the mall anymore, right? And so when you make things easier for people, people will choose what is easier. But we don't really realize in the process of taking that which is easier, right? We don't have that foresight. We don't understand the consequences, what we're actually giving up and what we're losing out on. And so in the presence of all the hookup culture and casual relationships,
Yeah.
what are we losing in the long run of our lives when 20 years later that 20-year-old is now 40 years old, he doesn't have a family, right? He has nothing for him to protect. He has
Yeah.
nothing to provide for. He has no purpose, right?
Yeah.
And so the
SubhanAllah.
the the harm of zina and the victims of zina isn't just women, but it's also men, right? And
Yeah.
and there's a lot of research and discussion about, you know, uh, the demise of boys,
Yes.
right? Like why guys are kind of just where are they? Why are they opting out? Well, what's aspirational for them,
Yeah. And,
right?
and it's being acting like young boys for much longer in life.
But it's
Without.
because they can afford to,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right? And so now, if all they have to do is swipe right, right? So I was reading one psychologist who was basically mentioning that really, if you're a young man, right, there's like these two really primal, like motivations for you.
Yeah.
So one they mentioned was violence, right? And so not violence necessarily in a negative way,
Yeah.
but just violence in the sense of accomplishment, right? Fighting and challenge yourself and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
accomplishment and they're attracted to that type of stuff. They're attracted to the notion of being a soldier. They're attracted to superheroes. They're attracted to
Yeah.
these types of accomplishments. And then the second one is sexual. These are your two. And as for the one for violence and accomplishment, that right now is being satisfied by video games.
And also sports, like, as in watching sports. Do you find that like seeing boxing, competing?
So vicariously kind of through
Yeah.
that, yeah. And
Yeah.
then number two, the sex is being satisfied through high quality pornography, right? And
SubhanAllah.
so, and this is interesting. People are actually dating less than before, So in Japan, they're talking about, they're asking the question of why their teenagers aren't dating at all, right? And in the United States, I think last year people were actually dating less. Like it actually started
What, as in terms of the amount of time or just generally?
both.
Wow.
The amount of time, of course, the amount of time is a given because women are being taken on dates less.
Okay.
Because again, women are the gatekeepers of this exchange.
Right.
They're the ones who decide when, where, how, all
Yep.
of that. And so when things have become, you know, so there's a sociologist who named Mark Regnerus who writes on this topic a lot, and he compares when women are in surplus versus men, or when men are in surplus versus women.
Okay.
And in his research, he found that in universities where the women are more than the men, so now the women are the men are the ones who are in short supply. So it becomes like a a market favorable to men.
Yep.
And so long-term relationships become less frequent, and relationships in general become more frequent because men are more inclined for casual relationships. And then in the universities where women were less, they were obviously the ones who were in demand, and so it was more in their favor, and those long-term relationships existed.
Right.
And so, but what technology has done is technology's kind of opened up the marketplace.
Yeah. And this isn't a Muslim problem, of course, right? This sort of stuff doesn't impact Muslims.
Of course it does.
It's a Muslim issue as well.
Of course, yeah.
And the Muslim families, they recognize this as this is an issue.
I mean, it's a disaster for Muslims. What are you talking about? Because Muslims are the ones who are not only, they're the ones who are saying, I'm going to put you in this environment where the haram is so easy and accessible.
Yeah.
Muslims are attractive too, by the way. Muslims go to university too.
okay.
Muslims,
Thank you very much,
yeah.
Eyesight's working in it.
MashaAllah, tabarakallah. And Muslims have urges as well, right? And so,
Do they recognize that there's this problem within them? As in, do the parents fear for their children, or is that there yet? That type of worry, or is there denial? Because
parents differ. You know what I mean? But I would think I would hope that a wise parent does have these concerns for their children.
Unscripted.